I would like to call this meeting of the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union Board together, April 4th, 2019, 6 o'clock. I do have to add a few things to the agenda, which we can do, we're supposed to do at the beginning of the agenda. So I need some direction from this board on issuing contracts. Teacher contracts will be sent out next week, and I need some advice on that. We need to set the next date, and I have a couple of WSESU resignations that I need to get. So those will need to be added at some point under new business. Anything else that people would like to have added to the agenda this evening? Okay, I would take nominations for election of the WSESU Board Chair.
I nominate Carrie Amadon.
Second.
Carrie Amadon's been nominated and seconded. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Carrie, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I turn it over to you.
I can't vote now.
Yes, you
You want me to come up there?
Yes, please.
Bye, Carrie.
I'm not going far.
Do I say a rose between two thorns or not?
All right, so moving on, we will now take nominations for a vice chair. Any nominations?
Nominate Christina Naylor.
Second?
All right, any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, all those in favor of Christina for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, next up, election of board clerk.
I nominate Kim.
Nope. Given that some people are new, would Kim mind giving us a 2-minute Reader's Digest version of what you have done? In the most positive light possible?
You just, I mean, you take minutes and you send them to Barb and you copy Carrie on them. And I never put in for it, but you do get paid for it. So, yes, it's $75 a meeting, I believe. Isn't that correct, Lyle?
I don't know.
I think that's what it is.
Sounds right.
Yes. So it is, I never put in for it. I didn't do it, so, but it is paid. I don't think that has changed.
So any nominations for clerk?
I nominate Miss Everest over there.
Have you been watching the Brattleboro?
Yes, I have, and you've been taking good minutes.
Second.
Thanks, Michael.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Katie as clerk? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Thank you, Katie. All right, so just to make sure, we will do those two new things, the contracts and resignations under new business, if that works for everybody. Do we need a formal motion on that? Or no? Okay. All right, clerk's report, minutes of December 6th. Any questions, amendments?
Move that we approve the minutes of December 6, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything anyone wants to talk about in the minutes? Everybody good? All right, all those in favor of passing the minutes of December 6th?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
One abstention.
One abstention? Communications. Any?
This isn't a communication, but we should let you know that we have Missy. Is Tasha there as well?
I'm working on it.
Okay, at least Missy from Guilford is on the phone, and possibly Tasha, so we do have 3 members from Guilford here.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
Was there an abstention on that last?
There was.
Thank you, sir.
So any communications from anyone? All right, well, moving right along. Recognition of groups other than BCTV, thank you for coming. Committee reports, finance. So we have, let's see, I guess we'll do anything that the Finance Compensation Committee wants to talk about? Or are we good moving right on to warrants?
We should announce the
new chair.
the reorganization.
Okay.
So somehow I ended up being chair of the finance committee, with Kim being vice chair, and we are still looking for a clerk, and we put that out to our next meeting, tentatively scheduled for May. Otherwise, we spent a few minutes talking about future options for the committee based on what happens here tonight, and did the warrants and payrolls.
Okay. Any questions for the committee? All right, moving on to warrants. Would someone like to move the warrants as listed?
I will move the warrants as listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Could I just point out that these are not the warrants that the Finance Committee just approved. These are from the previous Finance Committee.
So this is up until when we were possibly going to have a meeting? Okay, okay. So at our next meeting, we'll catch up between February and
In May.
May. Okay. Any questions? Seeing none? All those in favor of, oh,
I'm sorry.
Yep.
And payrolls, there's payrolls at
Oh.
the end of those as well. So
there are, okay, so the
friendly
warrants
amendment
and,
to the motion if possible.
I'll accept the amendment.
okay.
Second.
So all those in favor of passing the warrants and payrolls as listed in the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Unfinished business, part-time diversity position update.
Okay, so I have a job description. You'll remember in the fall, let's see if I can look for those ones, I think I do. We moved the full-time diversity position from the high school into the WSESU and added a part-time position. I have worked on this with the curriculum office, with Michaela Sims, the current diversity coordinator, and with a couple principals, just to look at what we are hoping to have. There is a section in the negotiated agreement with the teachers' negotiated agreement that if a teacher is reduced, if we have a RIF, a reduction in force, then that teacher must be offered the position, a new position for which they are qualified. You'll remember that we RIF'd an ELL teacher, and the ELL teacher is qualified for this diversity coach, in that she has in the past worked with a variety of different cultures, works with teachers, works with students, works with materials and how to adapt materials for different people. So I have gratefully offered her this position. She has until April 5th to make the determination whether or not she's going to accept it. If she does not accept it, we will advertise it in our usual school spring, but we will also advertise it in other places throughout the state. Some of you may know Curtis Reed, who has a Vermont partnership and has connections with people throughout the state. We'll advertise it in other areas where he is also maybe suggested that would get a good, diverse candidate pool. So that's the update on this. Anybody has questions?
Questions, anybody?
Yes, I do. What does RIF mean again?
Reduction in force.
All right. Any other questions?
Ask her.
I was just curious, is it okay to know who this person is, or is that a secret, or?
It's not a secret. I can tell you it was the last hired, lowest ELL teacher in WSESU. Not a person, the person's only spent her career teaching in the academy. I'm not certain I can say the name.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to policy review. We have got a few policies for second reading. How do we go about doing this?
I think if there's anyone who has any changes that they would suggest.
Okay, so let's just go down through them. So B3, board member conflict of interest. Any questions or concerns? And if I'm going too fast, just yell. Next is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act compliance. D14. Pretty short and sweet. Next up is travel reimbursement.
Did that one ever get changed? I don't seem to have these in hand right now. But did that one ever get changed as to making it clear that it was just for the SU employees or not just?
It's not just the SU.
So is that clear in that now? Because I think that came up the last time. I've got a whole different set of things here, so they don't.
So it says it's a policy of Women's Southeast Supervisory Union to reimburse the pre-approved reasonable expenses for travel for school business on an actual cost basis and reimbursement of mileage at the current IRS standard rate by its employees and school board members to the extent that the budgeted funds permit. So it says any, it doesn't say you mean specific, like the same thing happens in Dummerston, and I would think that what would happen is when these are all approved, they then go to individual boards. So Dummerston would say it's a policy of Dummerston School, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
Student alcohol and drugs, F9.
Yeah, there was something on that one too that we questioned the last time. I questioned the last time, and I don't have it in front of me.
I did have a question on the third page of it, or page 2, I guess, I'm sorry. Page 2. Under annual report, we're going to submit an annual report describing substance abuse education programs and their effectiveness. How does one do that? Are there metrics? How do you?
So
I'm just looking if you guys have guidance that you feel comfortable with so that you can.
Alcohol and drugs.
So part of second step, there's an alcohol, and we're required through Michigan Mom, thank you. We're required to teach alcohol and drug.
Yeah.
And then there are a number of different surveys that kids take, either the
Okay.
Youth Risk Behavior Survey or our own survey.
Okay.
Are there other ways that we're collecting information on
Unless
that?
it's part of the SERS, could be part of the SERS collection as well. Combined incident report, something that we do on a regular basis to the area.
So you can take that data and put it into your annual report. Okay.
Madam Chair, I found out what I fussed about the last time, and it's still in here.
Well, this is last.
Oh, that's this last time?
They might have
Maybe they've
changed it.
taken it out. When it said that substance abuse, under definitions, is the ingestion of drugs and/or alcohol in such a way that it interferes with a person's ability to perform physically, intellectually, emotionally, or socially. So it means you can be on alcohol or drugs as long as it's not affecting you these ways, which I don't think there should be any alcohol or any substance abuse, period. Now, did it get changed in the newer one?
It does not appear to be changed.
No. No.
But that's the definition of substance abuse.
Well, it doesn't mean we have to keep it.
No, but
No.
that's, you have to educate about substance abuse, though,
Right.
Jody. We talked about this, I think, at the, when you're doing substance abuse education, you're explaining what that is. That's the definition of substance abuse. We're not saying that any substance use is okay.
Right, so look at the first line.
Yeah.
Is the policy of the SU that no student shall knowingly possess,
Uh-huh.
use, sell, give, or otherwise transmit,
Yeah.
or be under the influence of any illegal drug. So I feel like
think that covers it?
we're
Yes.
starting it
Oh, yeah.
off with the,
Right.
Okay.
you can't do it. But then I would assume this is something where we have to define what is a drug, what is substance abuse. Does that work?
Yeah, it makes it more clear, but
Okay.
I still like it. And that other sentence still bothers me, but that's okay. I'm gonna sit here next to you, so I keep up, I don't have the updated ones.
These aren't updated.
Anything
These are
else
the
on
ones from
student
last time.
alcohol and drugs? So that leads us down to Title I comparability policy. Any questions?
That has
Christina?
questions on it too.
Yeah, I still think it's a little confusing. So are we compliant on that policy now?
Yes, I
Yes.
believe we are.
Okay.
I actually have done a lot of checking on this one since the last meeting.
Because it says, and it's confusing because it says the district shall utilize district-wide salary schedules. I think it should maybe say the supervisory union because it's a like districts would have district-wide salary. I can't imagine you would have different districts. So it's a confusion of using district maybe on that, on the last. It says students in all schools shall be eligible for comparable programs and supplemental supports. The district shall utilize district-wide salary schedules for professional and non-professional staff.
So you'd like that to say supervisory union?
I think that's the intent.
I agree.
Yes, especially seeing everything's under the supervisory union now for special education.
So are we looking to
Right.
change the district in the last sentence of the first paragraph to the supervisory union?
Yes.
So district becomes supervisory union.
Shall utilize supervisory
Shall
union.
This is-
utilize supervisory union-wide salary schedules?
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's what we
Okay,
do.
so in two places, we're gonna change supervisory union. All right, so can we get Barb to update that for the next?
And can I just make another comment?
Mhm.
So I think it was Tim did a lot of actual research on the legal references and noted that many of them are incorrect. And so Barb knows that and did not put those new references in, but will have them all updated when we do the final.
Okay.
I'm still confused, and maybe this has changed too, because these are the last ones, about how if a school in the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union, so if Brattleboro becomes eligible to receive Title I funds, the school district, does that mean the Brattleboro School District shall provide comparable services, or does that mean that other school districts should provide comparable services? Because some of us don't get Title I.
It may make sense to move that to, that reference to school district as well as the supervisory union. Here's the, I don't know if folks are clear about what the comparability thing is. If folks recall, the Johnson administration established, as part of the Great Society legislation, established Title I as support for schools that had a high population of low-income students. And the intent was to provide additional support to those schools because of the greater need that low-income students represent.
That makes sense.
But what tended to happen was there were school districts across the country that were saying, oh great, got federal funds, don't have to spend local funds. And so we're sort of evening things out. Some of the schools were getting federal funds, Title I funds, other schools were getting more of the local funds. Excuse me. And so the comparability policy was put in place to say, look, the federal funds are on top of a comparable provision of services to all of the other schools, right? So if you're spending federal dollars, Title I dollars, those dollars should be for services over and above what everybody receives, right? So for instance, there are schools in the district that have high poverty that receive Title I funds for almost completely, in that case, for academic support specialists. And there are a higher percentage of academic support specialists in those schools by virtue of the fact that they are Title I schools. Okay? So the state and local funds are intended to provide, it's a little different because we have different school districts. The federal money comes to the LEA as the supervisory union. So we have to demonstrate comparability across all the schools in the district. in terms of like a district-wide, an SU-wide salary schedule. That's one of the ways that we show that we're demonstrating Title I comparability, right? We're not paying teachers in other schools more or less than we're paying teachers in Title I schools, right?
But is that taking money away from the low poverty that really needs the Title I funds?
No, just the reverse. The comparability
Okay.
says you have to spend your local money evenly, sort of, everybody gets the same deal, and then Title I goes on top of that.
The comparability is talking to the non-Title I spending.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I don't think that's clear, I guess, that
Yeah.
that's what happens. I mean, we need your explanation on top of it.
So is there still a concern that in the first sentence, second line of this, the school district should, are we saying that should also be SU?
I think so.
And it might be, rather than shall provide, shall ensure comparable services, staffing levels, curriculum materials, because the SU at this point is not providing those services, but they are ensuring that those services are in place.
All right, so we've got, so wherever it says the word district, we're going to change it to SU. So I think I see 4 instances where district should be SU. Is that what everyone is?
And
then change provide
in
to
line
ensure.
2 to ensure.
Is everybody good with that? We'll see it again on third reading.
So what is the first sentence? How do you read?
If a school in the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union becomes eligible to receive Title I funds, the supervisory union shall ensure comparable services, staffing levels, curriculum materials, and instructional supplies for Title I eligible and non-Title I eligible schools.
So is it really saying if any school in the supervisory union is eligible for Title I, everyone has to get non-Title I equally, and then the Title I is sitting on top?
Well, can't it just say everyone needs to have non-Title I funds? I mean,
Well, then we
to
would
me, it's still
conflate.
confusing, but
So 4 changes of district to SU and provide becomes ensure. And then we will be seeing it again.
I think you also need to modify 4th line. If we're saying the SU shall use local and state funds, I think we also have to do some sort of, shall ensure that that individual districts use state and local funds.
How are you thinking that change?
The supervisory union shall ensure that local districts use local and state funds to ensure equivalence, because we still are going to have
Shall ensure
local districts
okay.
right now.
And I think you need to use it in the last sentence in that paragraph too. The supervisory union shall ensure district-wide salary schedules.
Or should they ensure SU-wide salary
Yeah,
schedules?
yes. SU.
Well, no, Kim just said the supervisory union shall ensure SU. You don't want to keep utilize?
Well, we do have a SU-wide salary
Yeah.
schedule. I think we can
Then you
utilize
can
that.
utilize
Yeah.
it.
Because it's a collective bargaining agreement and it's both.
So are we liking ensure or utilize?
Either one works.
Either one works?
We
I
can
think
do,
utilize seems.
yeah, we can
fine.
keep it utilized.
Okay. Anything else? Poor Barb. All right, so that takes care of the policy reviews on second reading. Do we need to vote on these? Nope, not till next time. All right, so now we're moving on to new business, a whole new set. First reading, education records. Any questions or concerns on this one? Anybody? Okay, we'll move on to student attendance. Oh, yeah, we should all bring these back to our individual boards, talk there, come back, give us any changes everybody has thought of. Limited English proficiency students. Anything on this one? Okay, pupil privacy rights. And then policy, oh, go ahead.
There was some changes in that, I think.
Yes.
On the first paragraph.
Yeah, so from the last time that we updated this in 2014, the state VSBA has made some changes, and these are the suggested changes from the VSBA.
Okay, number 3. Yeah, there's a space on number 3 after rights, and it originally said amendment, but there's a space now, so is that space just gone? At the end of number 3?
Federal Pupil Privacy Rights Amendment?
That's what it said on the one I got here in the first reading. But it doesn't make sense,
So maybe that's why it's left off.
maybe it is.
Oh, what was sent had amendment in it, was in red.
Yeah. Are you looking at an earlier copy?
Yes, that's what I said, but
Oh,
now,
okay.
but now at number 3, you've got rights, and then you've got a space with a semicolon, so I didn't know whether,
Oh, mine says
amendment.
yours says amendment also?
Yes.
Okay. So it ends at rights.
No, rights amendment,
Oh.
semicolon.
It does, okay.
Privacy rights.
Amendment, yeah.
Why it is in this, I just printed these.
All right, and then a larger one. Policy on prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying of students. So this is apparently 3 previous ones merged into one.
Yes. So the VSBA, working with some attorneys, have combined policies to put together what used to be a harassment policy, a hazing policy, a bullying policy into one policy. We need to make sure that we're reading this carefully, but this is a mandatory policy which I just found out we should have been using since 2015, and we haven't. And we need to, this will be one that we need to move and adopt pretty quickly because we are not in compliance with the law at this point. I've given this to principals and said, use it. Once we have it in motion, I feel like we're on the way to approving it, but I would ask that you make sure that you spend some time with this one. It is long. The policy itself is not too long, but the procedures are long, and we are held very closely to following these procedures.
So, Jody?
Is this still F23?
It is F23 now, and it was, let's see if I can find it.
F23, F27, F31.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have a question on it, and it's just a semantics. A couple of them, actually. It says the word on the second paragraph, it says based on race, creed. And I may be a dummy, but I had to look up to see exactly what creed meant. And I was thinking it might be better to say religious or just beliefs or something else other than creed. It seems like it would be more understandable to me. And then in the third paragraph, it says as defined below. So does that refer to the definitions?
Third paragraph.
Yeah. It says here, defined below. Oh, you don't have the same thing as I do.
Yeah, I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that.
No, I'm on the first page. So that may have changed.
Okay.
But the
There is-
paragraph starting with what, Jody?
It is the intent of the district to apply and enforce this policy.
Yeah, I don't see that
I
either.
don't have the paragraph.
I've got one that was supposed to come to Dummerston. So that's the one I'm using.
It's on the second page of this one.
It is on the second
It's
page?
like-
Oh, it is the
Roman
under
numeral 3,
constitutionally protected
constitutional
speech. Okay.
And then it says characteristics defined below. So is that referring to the definitions?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So the only thing I noticed is, I was comparing this to the BUHS handbook, and the handbook doesn't have the including an act conducted by electronic means. Is that something that will be updated? If you've told them to use
Yep.
this, great, that works.
And I have another question.
Yep.
When something says that this is mandatory, it's my understanding that it's mandatory to have one, not necessarily the one that's right there. So that you could change a mandatory one, but you have to have one.
Yes, though I would have to urge us not to change it much.
Yeah.
We have a civil rights case going on right now. They are not happy with this new one. They think it is not inclusive enough. So I'm even going to call our attorney and find out if we can change the word creed, because I know that the consequences for not following what is in place at the state level, and it could be costly.
Now, is this in place at the state level, or is this in place at VSBA?
This is in place at the state level. It's been through the legislature. It was sent to us apparently a few years ago, in 2015.
Okay, thank you.
Lyle, I was just wondering, you mentioned that this is different than our currently enacted policies. Could you describe a little bit about what is different in this document than what we have been doing?
Probably not as specific as you would like, but the procedures are different.
About what happens when someone
Yep.
reports
Yep.
billing
The
harassment?
timing is a little bit different. What letters and what is sent when is a bit different. The policy, as we just saw, that needs to be sent. So this policy is different from the policy that is sent to both the victim and the perpetrator. So those are some of the changes.
Okay,
Any
And-
other?
so it's really the stuff about the response
Yes,
of
the
this school
procedures
is
that we
what's
do.
different.
And remember, we used to have a separate policy for harassment, and now it's harassment, hazing, and bullying all in one. And so the way we're looking at and investigating, we would have to determine, is this harassment, is this hazing, is this bullying? And looking at those at the same time.
Where would I get an updated copy of this? Because mine still says harassment on it, so it must not be the updated
Barb
one.
sent
Yes,
them all.
she-
Yeah,
she
she
emailed
emailed
the
the original
agenda.
agenda email that you would have gotten from Barb.
You know what? I saw them. I thought they were the ones that we were dealing with in
No, Barb
Dummerston, so
sent
I
out
didn't.
all the-
Yeah, thank you very much, Carrie.
You're welcome. Sandy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, this is really minor, but I think there's a typo on the third page under G. It says, the fourth line down, marital status disability. I think it's supposed to be marital status disability.
Good girl.
Now, we are on tape. That would be a good one for Barb to have the comment.
This is the same stuff.
Carrie, I should mention, I'm following along on the website too, so Jody, they are on the.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I just thought they were the same ones that we've been looking at, so.
It was right. All right, other questions on this one? And again, take them all back to your boards or email your boards, read them over. All right.
So can I ask a
Yep.
question? So these would be the things that would be covered under harassment. So if a child was being harassed for, let's say, being poor, that wouldn't fall under the policy? Because it's not based on like socioeconomic status or...
So there are a few things that it has to meet. It has to be a protected category, and poverty would not be a protected category. So, and I think the protected categories are here. It would be bullying.
Okay.
It would rise to that level.
And the same thing with if the student wasn't disabled, because it says disability specifically, if they had a differing ability, let's say they were gifted, they would fall under bullying then. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions on this? Okay. Moving on to the Vernon requesting waiver for membership on the SU board. So I'll take one of these, split that in half and go that way. So a little background on this. This came about because probably back in January, I had a little aha moment. I had gone to the Brattleboro Representative Town Meeting Finance Committee because I heard that they were considering writing a letter about Vernon, and I decided maybe before people write letters about Vernon, I ought to show up and talk about Vernon. So I went to the meeting, we had a great discussion, they were very gracious, and at that meeting, they brought up the new SU structure post-merger, and how it would be 3 from Vernon and 3 from the new school district. So I said, yes, that is the way it is in the statute. And as I was heading home that night, I was doing my own little post-mortem on how did I do. And I remember saying, yeah, too bad it's in statute. And then I realized, I haven't read the statute in a while. So I pulled out the statute and I read it. And I came across what's on the second half of this paper, Section D, which clearly stated that upon application by a supervisory union board, the state board may waive any requirements, blah, 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 dealing with board composition. Then I had another aha moment where I remembered being at a State Board of Education meeting last year, and I think it was at the end of October. I don't know where we were. And they were discussing Vernon and where to put us and what to do with us. And the state board actually had a discussion discussing that this was going to happen. And they knew it was going to happen. They knew that what they were doing was going to, in effect, mess up our supervisory union composition. And they said, but we can deal with that. All they have to do is ask us. So this really isn't a problem unless we make it one. This is a problem that we can fix. But we have to fix it. We as a supervisory union board, we're the only ones who can. The State Board of Ed is sitting up there going, we know they can ask us and we'll fix it. They have already, I think back in March, they already had done 2 other SU board waiver requests from other SUs who are under similar circumstances that we are right now. So I came up with proposed language. You are free to change, tweak, discuss any comments or concerns. In effect, we're asking them to change it from 3 from Vernon, 3 from the new, to 1 from each town. So it would be a 5-member board. And this is just language we would send to the state board and go from there. Jody?
Would this by any means include the high school?
Not the way it's currently written.
Okay.
I don't know, I mean, that's something we can talk about.
That would make it even again, though. This would make it uneven.
Right?
Would that board be too small to do anything, or should we consider 2 people from each board?
Well, I thought about that. If you have 2 people from each board, you're in effect,
It's the whole board.
it's the whole board. You're taking the entire new board and making them meet and then meet again under a different title.
Oh, so you're
Just-
assuming we're merged. Okay, I'm
Hey.
with you, yeah.
Kind of just going along that path,
Yeah.
just to be prepared because,
If we're not merged, we don't need to make this change.
Correct.
It's only
Correct.
for the
If-
purpose of
if-
making the merged SU board equitable.
right, because if as of July 1st, we are merged and then someone calls an SU meeting, 3 people from the new board are going to show up and 3 people from Vernon are going to show up and we're going to be doing the SU's business, and that just does not seem fair.
So if we did this, we would put a thing in front of it saying that in case that we're merged, would be this way. If we're not merged, it would be the way we are.
So we could,
A disclaimer, I guess.
right, so any recommendation on, as implementation, we recommend as of July 1st, 2019, if the merger is completed? You looked like you had.
I'm wondering if you want to make it a little more open than that, because you would want it to then cover July 1st, 2020, if that's when the merger happens, so we don't have to do 3.
So what, okay, what's your suggestion?
You could just say when the district merges and not put a specific date. That way it'll just apply whenever it needs to
Upon the event
apply.
of merger.
Yeah, up there.
Upon the event of merger, we recommend, as we believe this to be disproportionate and not in the public interest, we recommend, upon the event of merger, a new structure with equal representation. So I'm just taking off as of July 1st, 2019, and inserting upon the event of merger. Does that seem? To be disproportionate and not in the public interest, we recommend upon the event of merger a new.
Of existing school districts.
Say that.
Of existing school districts.
Upon the event of merger of existing school districts, a new structure with equal representation of 1 member per town for a total board membership of 5. Any other concerns, questions, comments?
So right now, we're all members of a school district, school board. And what happens, I guess you would, I mean, is it a community member? Or does it have to be a school board member or a merged board member who sits on the supervisor? That's probably in statute. What?
I feel like it's in statute that because right now it's in statute that the 3 come from the school board.
Right.
So I'm not sure they would give us leeway on that.
Right. That would be interesting to ask. I mean, if you have a leadership council, quote unquote, or something of that sort at a school that's keenly aware and wants to, perhaps
Be
is not
part
an
of.
elected board member, but wants to be a part of the governance structure of this area.
But is that legal for people to be on this board who weren't elected?
Yeah, I would think it,
I can't remember off the top of my head.
yeah, and I only unfortunately grabbed that section of the statute.
It's lookupable.
Yes.
So would you reread, I missed a part of this, please.
So the first 2 paragraphs remain the same. This 3rd paragraph has changed slightly. As we believe this to be disproportionate and not in the public interest, we recommend, upon the event of merger of existing school districts, a new structure with equal representation of 1 member per town for a total board membership of 5.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Sorry for my ignorance here, but if the merger were to go through and if there were a new SU board, whether it's 5 or 6 members, however, would like special ed still go through the SU board as opposed to the unified board? And would it then never come to a direct thing to the voters? Is that right? Because I'm just thinking that, at this point, basically what you're doing, we talked a little bit about this in Finance Committee, is creating an SU the size of the Finance Committee. And one of the possibilities is then we wouldn't have a Finance Committee, it would just be that. But then it would be basically 6 or 5 people deciding a, $15 million budget, whatever, with input and all, but it's just those individuals. And I mean, already we don't face the voters directly, but at least there's 18 or whatever. So we get a bigger diversity of views here. So I'm a little, and again, I'm late to the game here, but it just to put that much control of the budget in such a limited number of hands, and then that's passed back, instead of to each of the individual school boards like it is now, it's passed to the unified board of here it is and it's non-negotiable at that point. It just strikes me that's an awfully small board and a pretty big burden on just 5 people. And then that brings up the notion of course, I mean, my mind isn't wrapped around I guess I'm one of the BUHS reps that the unified board would be handling the, anyways, I'm concerned that it's just too small of a board to handle what may be, 20% of the overall budget for all the schools in all the towns.
Jody?
I think we have to keep into consideration right now that we're dealing with 3 and 3, which is 6, and the 5 isn't that far off.
Oh, no,
So I think
I'm saying
if we
6
need
is
to
too
come
small,
up with
too.
something,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's
something
somebody
other.
suggested 2 from each town, and then there's, there's that, but still, I mean, but the unified board, we'd have to present, just like all of us do, we present our budgets to voters who go yay and nay. Here, with the SU budget, we don't do that, but at least we have a bigger representation here. And to bring it down just to 5 or 6 people just strikes me as it's certainly different. I mean, there'd be a lot of things that are different, but there's a difference that I'm just wondering what that would feel like to have that responsibility in the hands of so few people.
I said at the Finance Committee, and I'll say tonight here, I just commend Vernon for not saying, whoopee, we've got 3 votes and we're going to go for it, and trying to be fair. Because I don't think Vernon wants to leave us, and I don't think any of us want Vernon to leave us. So the question is just how to solve the problems.
How to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So I could interject a little bit in that just working with both the districts and the supervisory union in developing the budget. So obviously working at the school level with principals, teachers, and boards, obviously superintendent at every pass, and then working with a different group of people, but certainly a subset for the supervisory union budget. I haven't seen a problem with the structure as it is now in the context I think that you're raising, Russ, which is just the communication, the line of communication between finance and the board. I think it was an issue a few years ago, and we raised that issue that, hey, when the finance committee makes assumptions and it has implications for an assessment to the local district, let's make sure the local districts are very aware that what you've represented, as being a finance committee. So my sense is that we've addressed the concern that was, it was evident that there was not enough communication there. So I think as long as there's good leadership at the board level in terms of the board chair and the designee that goes to the supervisory union, maybe we even have a policy about revisiting the updates, the sharing of the information. I think it's viable.
Jody?
I think something that we talked about in the alternative governance structure, I think could, and maybe this is what Frank is saying, was the fact that we would meet together far more often to share things and so that Lyle wouldn't have to explain things 20 times, and that we would meet from school to school very, very often and not have the 4 times a year SU meetings. And I think that could be very good for everybody and to being learned, because the one thing that this whole process has done to me anyway, and I've heard other people say the same thing, is that it's made us work together and to think about, oh, you do that in your town and you do that in your town, and why can't we do them together and work things out and share ideas, which I think is really important. So I think that could work very well with a smaller board.
Other questions or concerns? Would someone like to make a motion? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted
Ms.
to
Dew.
clarify, because Michael and I looked it up, and you have to be a board member to serve.
You have to be a board member to
Pretty sure
serve.
that's true.
Okay. So I think if we wanted to, our next steps are someone makes a motion to take the proposed language as revised, send it to the State Board of Education from the WSESU, and make the request. I can't tell you what's going to happen after we make the request, but we have to start the conversation with them by making a request in some way.
Sorry, one other question. If we do this, the unified board would be, so the unified board would be 2 from each town.
Correct.
And then the SU board would be 1 from each town, if this passed from one of those. So would that be a quorum for the unified board? So we'd have to warn a
2
double
meetings.
meeting?
Or do we, in the essence of saving time, do we just make sure that if we have an SU meeting 4 times a year, it happens an hour prior to a merged board meeting? So 5 people show up first, and then the other 4 people show up, and 1 person gets to go home. Because Vernon would get to leave. So 5 people would show up for an SU meeting, and then for the other half of the merged board, 4 people would show up.
It is only 5, you're right.
And so it might be a nice way to schedule meetings so that.
Is half of a board a quorum, or does it have to be more than half?
So in an SU, it has to be not only a quorum of your board, but also a quorum of the boards. So it would certainly be a quorum of the boards because all boards would be represented.
But I mean, would that SU board constitute a quorum because it would be exactly half of the other board?
That I don't know.
Yeah, we better find out.
So that,
Because if so, then my idea of increasing it to 2 is just, we roll it into the same committee, that if you're on one board, you're on both board, and then you're responsible for the whole budget rather than just 80% of the budget. So, I don't know.
so 2 from each.
2 from each would be
Two from each.
the whole board.
Would be the whole
Plus-
board.
plus Vernon.
Two Vernon.
Plus 2 from Vernon. So that's another possibility.
Could we change the membership from 2 from everybody to 3 from everybody?
Well, there won't be people on
There
the
won't
board.
be 3.
Get to be a-
No, in the merged board, the super
Oh.
board.
Well, we can't do that tonight, so.
Well, I was just, that would put more people involved.
Mhm.
This can be revisited at any time. Even, like, if we were to send, 2 things. One, I appreciate that you included the statute, that in the last line of the statute is that if we were, if this was somehow reversed and we were equally represented, they wouldn't accept a request for us to increase Vernon's representation, for example. So if we were going in reverse, they wouldn't accept it. It says, unless, will not result in any disproportionate representation. So I think that's worth something. And if we were to send a letter requesting a 5-member SU board, we could revisit that with the AOE at any time. So should the merged district board change the number of representation, we could come
Go
back
back
to it.
and say, now that our merged district board is larger,
Yeah.
we would like more representation.
Yeah.
I think that is an option. I think right now the only thing we're looking for is let's get the ball rolling with them, so at least we could get on an agenda. I don't know when their next meetings are, I meant to look that up.
The state board?
State board.
Isn't it the 3rd week of the month?
So. But given that we're in April and we've only got possibly, we might hit an April meeting. I don't know if it's too late to get on their agenda. We've got May and June.
The sooner the better, probably, if we can decide on something.
So would someone like to make a motion?
I move that the supervisory union authorize Carrie to revise the language as discussed and submit it to the state board.
Is there a second? Right? Any more
Who's the
discussion?
second? Is that you?
Anne. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of sending the letter to the state board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Seeing none. I will get that letter right out. Planning for Act 46 budget work session. What is this?
This was put on before we had had our organizational meeting. Now that we've had the organizational meeting, we don't really need this. There are meetings scheduled for April 8 here at 6 o'clock and April 24th in Dummerston. I believe that's also at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Yes. I would like to say, while we're on camera, once again, petitions are available now for the merged board. They're due on April 15th with the election on May 21. I think there were some errors in a recent newspaper article. The correct dates are you must have your petition in by April 15.
5 o'clock.
By 4, 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock's the deadline.
All right. Any questions on that? All right, so contracts.
So each year when we are issuing contracts, teacher contracts, we do it about this time, and we always put in the site where the teachers are working and the district name. I would like direction from you. Vernon is easy, they will continue to be Vernon. Special ed teachers are easy because they continue to work for WSESU. How would you direct me to proceed with everybody else?
So this is, you've got no problem with the site, but the district name, you guys didn't come up with WSS?
We did,
D?
and that is what we will be if we are merged. If we are not merged. So
Do you use both?
I contacted an attorney
Okay.
and his recommendation was that we could use both Wyndham Southeast School District working in Putney.
Oh, I was thinking wait.
I'm confused.
I need to have a name of where these teachers will be employed through.
Essentially what entity employs.
Exactly.
So what about Putney Town School District and or Wyndham, what is it? SSD,
D.
WSSD,
Yep.
hereby employs blah, blah, blah.
Whatever you,
It's Wyndham Southeast School District.
WSESD.
Yeah, Wyndham Southeast School District.
We're using the E's? Are you using the E's?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what
I thought, okay. That's okay.
don't even bring that up.
Yeah, sorry. There's a lot, this is alphabet soup. Any other suggestions? So right now it seems like using both. Do you need a formal motion on that?
I would appreciate it, and if
Do
you
you
could
want to
just
make a formal
say-
motion?
I move that the supervisory union board suggest that for contract purposes, the existing town school district or employing body is named and the WSESD is also named as the employer.
Is there a second? Second. Kim? Any other questions on
Do you want
that?
to add the notion of except for SU employees and Vernon? Or is
So
that-
what I will do is send a cover letter anyway, which I always do, thanking teachers for working with us. And I will note on there the differences in their contracts so that they aren't surprised, but I will say Vernon stays the same. when
No, I
there's-
just meant in the motion, whether the
Oh,
the
oh,
language,
oh.
because it almost sounds
It
We're
like.
doesn't-
even asking about that.
Yeah, we don't really need to.
Because you're still employing
That's not changing.
That's not changing.
supervisory
Right,
union
okay.
employees through the existing supervisory union, whatever board structure exists.
Right.
For employees currently employed in the town district,
Yeah.
town school
Yeah,
district.
just the town school districts.
All right, any other questions on that? If not, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? All right, seeing none, you said there were some resignations.
Yes, so these are employees through WSESU as their special educators. So please accept this letter as notice of my resignation of my full-time position as special education social worker effective May 24th, 2019. Thank you for the guidance and leadership you have offered, which has been focused, deliberate, and absolutely supportive. And that's from Malcolm Pradia, who works in BU6. So I would need you to accept that. Would you like the other one at the same time and do them together at once? Is that okay? To whom it may concern, I'd like to notify you that I am resigning from my position as Step Intensive Case Manager for Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union as of June 30th, 2018. Thank you very much for the opportunities you have given me to learn about special education, case management, and behavior. I've genuinely enjoyed my time working for this district. I believe the experience has taught me so much about special education. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to complete my master's degree and increase my knowledge in the area of applied behavior analysis. At the conclusion of this school year, I will be relocating to Rhode Island to be closer to family. And in the meantime, I'm happy to assist in the transition of a new STEP intensive case manager. And that's Ashley Haynes, who is presently working at Academy School.
Now, you read 2018, was it 2018 or 2019?
June 2018, but that is, I read what I saw, but it's not here.
So do you need a formal motion on that?
Yes, I do need a
Would
formal
someone
motion.
make a motion to accept?
I move that we accept the 2 resignations with regret.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none. Any other business?
So the Finance Committee just met and we were proposing our next meeting, the May 23rd, I think I have that right.
23rd.
May 23rd? Yes, May 23rd. It's a Tuesday? Thursday, sorry, May
Okay.
23rd.
6 o'clock here?
Yeah, I will
You'll try?
to get here
Okay.
and confirm with you.
And finance is meeting ahead of that,
Right.
5:30.
That'll be a fun week. We'll have elections, we'll have a merged board
I
meeting.
forgot.
Sorry, I
I
should have
did
told
put
you.
myself
It's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's out.
Any other business? If not, does someone want to make the favorite motion?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.